No, I know. I'm talking about the Steve not here. Can you see Silvio? One and one?
They're for the proclamation, so it's just going to be a brief way. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raise hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the right-hand corner. When you reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click the button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a proclamation tonight. Oh, sorry, I'm mad at myself. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Mayor Skelly?
Here.
Councilor Gilborn?
Here.
Councilor Fisher?
Here.
Councilor Kennedy? Here. Councilor Powers?
Here.
Councilor Reed?
Here.
Councilor Scamperly?
Here.
Four present.
We have a proclamation for Arts and Humanities Month. I will read that proclamation now. I guess I was a little excited to do it. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for over 30 years. And whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American, and whereas the arts and humanities plays a unique role in the life of our families, our communities, and our country, and whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens our national economy by generating $135 billion in total economic activity annually and $22.3 billion in government revenue, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 4.1 million jobs. And whereas local organizations like the Ogdensburg Command Performances have a dedicated and deep local tradition of supporting the arts and humanities here in our great city and North Country. Now, therefore, I, Jeffrey M. Skelly, hereby proclaim October to be National Arts and Humanities Month in the city of Ogdensburg, and call upon our citizens to continue promoting the arts, culture, and all forms of creative expression wherever possible. I'll sign this, and if you ladies would come down, I would like to present this with you. No, we don't. If you want to. I feel healthy if you do.
Are we allowed? It just takes me a second to get over there, but I'll take it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Kathy, do you have to sign this? It's all good?
We're good?
Yes, and thank you for all you do. I know my grandson was in one of the plays, and we still talk about it. He was a little at the time, but he enjoyed it so much, and and you bring in some culture and enjoyment to Augsburg. Thank you.
Could I just introduce these two
Oh,
ladies?
yes, yes.
Okay. My name is Sally Palau. I'm the administrator for Augsburg Command Performances. This is Cindy Wilson. She has been in Augsburg Command Performances for over 30 years. That's how much she believes in the arts. And Pat Swan is a past president of the board and currently the chairman of the Playbill campaign and the nominating committee. So we're well represented tonight with these two. Thank you.
Take care. We do not have any presentations tonight. Public hearings. We have 3 public hearings tonight. I think that might be a record for us. In my time. The first public hearing is regarding an ordinance to amend Chapter 221 entitled Zoning, Section 221-8 entitled Zoning Map, parcels number 48.077-1-3.1 and 48.077-1-2.2 to be rezoned from moderate density residential to residential business. It's going to be Bill number 88, and I will open that to public hearing now. Our clerk will read a letter submitted for this public hearing, and then we'll have people speak after that.
Dear Mayor of Augsburg and City Council members, my husband and I purchased the boathouse camp property, 505 off Covington Street in 2014. The 505 Covington Street property behind us became available in late 2016, and as we were both reaching retirement age, we decided to sell our large family home on Elizabeth Street, and we significantly downsized to Covington Street. We removed the existing trailer and purchased a modular home that was delivered in August of 2017. My husband carefully studied and went to great lengths to position the new home so we had the perfect view of the sunset from our living room. We have spent the last 6 years feverishly trying to improve the property on Covington Street so it would be a beautiful, peaceful, enjoyable place to live and enjoy with our family and friends. Initially, we were rather unaffected when first informed of the plans to potentially turn the back of the property into a 65-slot marina and restaurant. However, the more neighbors and friends described the reality of the situation, the more we became concerned about what this would do to the atmosphere of our forever home. First, one of the reasons we were attracted to purchasing the riverfront properties was the gorgeous view of the river. Secondly, it was peaceful and private. A good portion of our view would become obstructed due to 65 boat slips. This leads to another concern of parking and traffic on Covington Street. There is literally very limited to no parking available on Covington Street. It has been a long-standing issue for the residents who live there. As a matter of fact, I believe it is one of the only streets in Augsburg that allows its residents to park on the street all winter long due to this issue. Knowing parking was an issue when we built our home, we took that into consideration when we located our new structure and thought we had accommodated for this, and our driveway is still blocked several times a year. Covington Street is only 1 block long. The street and river traffic would both be significantly increased, as well as the noise and loss of privacy that goes hand in hand with both. Breakwater engineering concerns. For the past 6 years, my husband has been endlessly cleaning up debris upon the riverbank, ranging from kitchen cabinets to parts of docks and over 100 feet of poles. There is very little natural breakwater which exists upon the back of the property. According to mechanical engineer Kenneth Malone, owner of the company 5-Star out of Kodak Park, Rochester, without a significant man-made breakwater, all of the proposed floating docks could end up strung all over the riverbank downstream during any 55 to 60 miles per hour wind or storm. We would never have invested our life savings to build a retirement home next to a bar/restaurant/marina. And I believe most property owners would share and express the same concerns if they were presented with the same proposal. There is no doubt the back of the property is a beautiful lot. When we were burdened with 2 major floods, that property seemed unaffected, and we were so We have had several citizens approach us asking for our advice on the property. As a matter of fact, I know of 2 families right now who are seriously interested in purchasing the property to build homes on. Those residential plans would be more fitting with the existing ambiance of the neighborhood. As it stands right now, the proposed land use, we believe, will adversely impact the neighborhood to live without undue disturbances from nuisances, from noise, fumes, vibration, etc. Maybe the former Harbor Master Restaurant and Marina down next to the Augsburg Greenbelt would be a better fit for this proposal, as it would be more like the current existing neighborhood, in appropriate harmony with the Augsburg Marina boat launch, Patterson Street boat launch, and Hosmer's Marina, Tiki Bar, etc., where there are no homeowners located on the river in these locations. I pray that the mayor of Augsburg and the city council will look very carefully into this proposal of allowing this property to be rezoned. Sincerely, Kathleen Gilborn.
Would anyone like to come down to the podium and speak on this?
I do.
Person. Yeah, yeah.
You can take your mask off at the podium.
This is Ernest Brothers. I live at 524 Covington Street. I purchased my house 18 years ago. I grew up on Covington Street, watched Shade Roller, all the traffic that was down there. It's never been an issue to anybody on that street. I would love to see something come in there. It's a beautiful piece of property and the city could use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Miss.
My name is Richardson. First of all, I want to thank you for your time tonight in reviewing our proposition here. My husband is here with these nights with his friends, and we are speaking as interested purchasers of the property located on Covington Street. We feel this piece of riverfront would lend itself well to a variety of developmental projects. Those and retail services along the St. River are in short supply at this time and would appear to be a viable option for development. Additionally, the waterfront is somewhat protected from the current in this area, which would lend itself to a safe marina. Again, these ideas are very preliminary at this point. We feel that improving the area will benefit our city in many ways. We hope to attract voters from up and down the river, as well as Canada, after the pandemic. And we would also hope that our neighbors in Canton, Potsdam, and surrounding areas might be used to this area with whatever development is decided upon. We expect the project to complement and to enhance those local businesses on the river, which are already bringing visitors to our city. And of course, we would increase the tax base to support our city. Certainly, let's look at the hurdles to any project we consider: investment returns, CEC regulations, or important engineer regulations. Many of these may prevent some of the options we are looking at. We are hopeful we can navigate these agencies, develop the area in a way that is consistent with the neighborhood and adds value to our city. The city of Augsburg has held its breath for years, and we hope for a large organization with deep pockets to come in and take over possibly the Shade Roller or the Diamond National Public property and to rebrand Augsburg as a destination city. Or this hasn't happened yet. Maybe we need to rethink the idea of riverfront development and some practice on a smart scale. Possibly investment by our own citizens, such as Mr. Hosmer and Mr. Prairie, might be the starting point to develop the waterfront we are so fortunate to have access to. This is exactly what we'd like to be a part of. We would like to invest in Augsburg and see our city benefit from the greatest asset, the St. Lawrence River. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are you speaking, Joe?
Bear with me. Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, members of the City Council. I am here to speak in favor of the zoning change regarding the properties on Covington Street. But first of all, I would be remiss in not commending the staff of the City Planner's Office, Ms. Smith especially, who with her knowledge and capability made this process simple and understandable. Thank you, Ms. Smith. In 2014, we were fortunate enough to sell our business. leaving us with this piece of property that's 2-acre parcel with over 400 foot of riverfront. This land is north of Covington Street and was originally used as a parking lot for the standard shade roller and then used in my landscaping business. I had approached the city to rezone the parcel from residential business to moderate density housing, as at the time, there was interest in dividing the property and erecting single-family housing. The change was approved. However, the interested parties backed out of the deal. At that time, in 2014, it was placed in the hands of a realtor. And in 6 years, through all the advertising and everything that they've done, it was never shown once. Since this property has been historically zoned residential business and has always been in a commercial industrial district, I am seeking to change back to residential business. I would like to continue with a little more history. In 2007, the city of Ogdensburg made a request for a proposal for development of the Davidson National property. They received 3 proposals from developers, 2 of which dropped out almost immediately, leaving the team of James Sharp of American Communities and Paul Nethers of Christian Builders. They had proposed single-family housing, single-family homes, multi-family units, retail space, and community areas. They had also proposed to acquire the standard shade roller property, tear it down, clean it up, and develop that parcel also. It was a very ambitious project. And it just got too complicated. That was 13 years ago. The property still remains vacant. I am hoping that we can change that by encouraging development in that area. When I was at the planning board meeting, a member said that forest fires start with just a small spark. And he hoped that this may just be the spark to start development in this area. I have been recently approached by persons interested in developing this land for commercial purposes. These developers intend to take advantage of the river through a service-type business, which I strongly believe would be beneficial to the Ogdensburg. There are currently 3 similar businesses in the city of Ogdensburg. However, they are overwhelmed with customers and have an extensive waiting list for their services. I have reached out to 2 of the business owners, and each explained that they would be comfortable having this new venture in the city. They do not feel it would negatively impact their current level of operations. And as the third business is city-owned, I have not reached out to seek their opinion. But due to the waiting list of potential customers, I doubt they would object. I personally know the persons interested in this pursuit. Their intention, in addition to start a business, is also to create a green space through landscaping. Their concept is to create a family-oriented space to enjoy the river. This would allow individuals and families to enjoy water-related recreational opportunities that may not otherwise be available to them. The St. Lawrence River is one of, if not the city's greatest asset, but it is largely overlooked when future development is addressed. At a time when businesses are closing and the city is losing tax-based income, it is imperative that we not allow this opportunity to pass based on a simple zoning issue. The potential for increased revenue for the city should be welcomed. Along with increasing the value of the parcel by placement of a business, there is also the potential for increased tourism, which could possibly, positively impact local hotels, restaurants, the Remington, and retail outlets. Ogdensburg has thousands of feet of riverfront that has sat idle for too long. It's time to act and create that spark for waterfront development. Simply starting with one business may elevate us to rival other tourist destinations along the St. Lawrence, such as Clayton and Alex Bay. Local politicians over the years have campaigned on riverfront development, business development, and increased tax base. Allowing this zoning change will help secure some of the promises that were made to citizens and may offer a rebirth to a city in distress. Additionally, making this zoning change will offer the city the advantage of continued tax collection through sales tax as opposed to yearly property taxes should this remain zoned as moderate density housing. Our city manager, Mr. Jelly, stated in a letter published in the North Country Now, dated October 5th, 2020, and I quote, "The mighty St. Lawrence River continues to run vigorously between the borders of our great nation and that of our centuries-old neighbor, Canada. There is renewed interest in building on the waterfront with business and residential opportunities that will be the catalyst for growth of the Maple City so long sought after. Many of our local entrepreneurs are working diligently to grow their family businesses and reinvest in the city. Mr. Jelly's, and that's unquote, Mr. Jelly's quote resonates with me. Not only as a retired businessman, but as a lifelong resident of the city of Ogdensburg. While I operated Bastards Flowers, I was supported by our community. And in return, supported the community back. I have always held a belief in civic duty to ensure Ogdensburg was the best city it could be. I fully support new business in Ogdensburg and would encourage anyone considering launching a new business to consider Ogdensburg first. Ogdensburg, like many small cities across this country, has seen a decline in residents and in business. A favorable zoning change may prove to future developers that the city of Ogdensburg is willing to work through these issues that may otherwise stall any forward progress. I appreciate your time and consideration to this matter. I am available and willing to discuss any further questions or concerns you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the audience? Is there anyone who would like to speak?
I wrote a letter, but she didn't read it. You want me to read it myself? Oh, okay. Good evening.
And you can take your mask off if you're comfortable at that podium.
My name is Ken Gilborn, and my wife Kathleen and I spent the last 6 years trying to make the riverfront on Covington Street a more beautiful place to live and enjoy with our family and friends. When Butch first described his and Frank Richardson's plan of turning the Basta property into a marina and restaurant, I really didn't think much of it. However, the more people described the reality of the situation, the more I slowly became concerned. First of all, one of the reasons I was attracted to purchasing the boathouse camp from Art Valley was an uninhibited view of the river all the way to Brockville. My wife, as everyone knows via Facebook, is also a huge lover of sunset. If Frank and Butch's plan achieves fruition, then a good portion of my view would become that of 65 boats, numerous docks, and boat trailers. Next, I'm a bit afraid of all the boat traffic. As it is now, my daughter Grace and her friends take off on their jet skis without a whole lot of worry. With 65 or more boats potentially coming in and out of a newly planned marina, I will constantly be worrying about her and her friends colliding with someone or something. Furthermore, the channel in front of Covington Street is generally known to be narrow because of a large shoal out front. This will lead to a funnel of all waterfront traffic and either further congestion and potential for accidents. Moreover, I am also a bit concerned or worried about the noise. Yes, everybody knows my friends and family like to hang out on the riverbank on Saturday night. However, the music is generally provided by my DeWalt battery-powered shop radio. Multiply that times 65 or from bands at the restaurant/bar, and we really don't know what to expect. Finally, I would like to say that Covington Street is a residential area and is zoned as such. Personally, I would like to see a few new homes, such as my own, built on the Basta property, as opposed to a restaurant and a marina. I am all for expanding our city's tax base, but the research has shown me that 60% of all new restaurants don't make it past the first year, and 80% of businesses fail within 4 years. A perfect example is the Harbor Master Restaurant and Marina down next to the Ogdensburg Green Belt. In contrast, how many abandoned riverfront homes does anyone know of? I have been informed that there are currently 2 different families seriously interested in purchasing this property for residential purposes. One of whom is here tonight and is also speaking for the second party. Overall, I trust the city council will look very carefully into this issue and not make any hasty decisions into rezoning a long-established city residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yep.
My name's Donna Trim. I'm the party who just mentioned, interested in purchasing for residential purposes. I'm representing myself and, Eric and Heather Davidson, interested in purchasing the other half. And I don't know if there's anyone out here who lives on Covington Street who's, also concerned about the, commercial development, but hopefully they'll come forward and speak if they are. If there's no one else here who lives on Covington Street, I just want to just put a voice out there for those people. You know, I think if, and I could be wrong, but I think if this were being proposed on like Proctor Avenue, this might be a little bit more difficult to sell because those people have some money and they've got some clout. And the people on Covington, maybe a little less affluent, maybe a little less influential. And so I just want to put that voice out there on their behalf, that this is a residential neighborhood and that this is just going to change their life. As Ken described, it's going to be a significant change in their quality of life. So just something to think about. I know you have to do what's best for the city, but part of doing what's best for the city is doing what's best for the residents in the neighborhood. So that's my voice. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh.
My name is Frank Richardson.
Hi, Frank.
And I haven't said exactly what I do with this property. I may not put a restaurant there, but I do want to put a marina there. I haven't ruled out putting, residential housing in there, you know. I don't know if it'd be feasible to do it. A couple of, small condos like they got in Worcester. I've been even leaning toward that, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but it's just too nice a piece of property to just leave and do nothing with, or just put a couple more residential houses there, because sooner or later, somebody's gonna take that chain roller property, and chances are, that's not good for residents. So, we keep talking about a restaurant, that probably may not even happen, but the marina would have. Maybe like a small, bait shop or something, and then decide what I wanna do with the rest of it.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak in the audience? Yeah.
My name is Alex Rule. I live in 540 Covington, right on the corner. We would be right up the street from whether it's going to be in construction or private housing. I trust you guys to make the right decisions as far as what's best for the city. I would like to see it remain a residential area. We've got a lot of young children that live and play on that street, and I worry about traffic and how it would be with them. They would lose their only playground in the area. There's nothing there for them to do besides that protected street area. So that would be a concern of mine as well. Just please take that into consideration, because they work all the time and they're not home to be here right now, like you said. But I'm from there, so I would like to stay residential.
Well, thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone remotely, Kathy? No?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. If there's no one else, then I'll declare this hearing closed. And our second is Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith, will speak for the next public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening to give you an introduction to the second public hearing of the evening, which is a public hearing on a proposal to prepare a 2021 EPA cleanup grant application. Part of the requirements to prepare a cleanup grant application is that the city prepare and have available for comment a draft ABCA. An ABCA is the acronym for Analysis of Brownfield Cleanup Alternatives. We have had one prepared on our behalf by Barton and Judith. This is a document that outlines the environmental cleanup alternatives that were evaluated for federally funded remediation projects. Again, this is a requirement for EPA cleanup grants. In addition to the asbestos survey that the city had done in 2014. So in accordance with the requirements, I'm just going to go through a few highlights from that report, and then we will accept public comments. In 2014, the city did conduct an asbestos survey, which did outline friable asbestos as well as non-friable asbestos. Friable materials are those which can be crushed or pulverized when dry by hand pressure alone. These materials include, but are not limited to, pipe and pipe fitting insulation, boiler and hot water insulation, spray insulation, and troweled on materials including steel and plaster. Non-friable materials, which do not readily release fibers into the atmosphere because they are locked into a matrix of material. However, these are also a health risk and should be taken seriously when disposed of. Both friable and non-friable materials require oversight when being removed by the Department of Labor. The ABCA identifies two cleanup alternatives that were considered to address the presence of asbestos-containing material within the building structure. The building has been deemed, the building, I should say, is 221 4th Street, excuse me. The building has been deemed by the Building Code Enforcement Officer to be structurally unsound and not safe to enter. Therefore, it is not possible to include a cleanup alternative that addresses the performance of asbestos abatement while leaving the building structure intact. The ABCA addresses the ability to implement, associated costs, and effectiveness of each cleanup alternative. There are two alternatives that are outlined in the ABCA. The first is a no-action alternative. Every ABCA is required to have a no-action alternative because you always have the alternative to do nothing. This alternative consists of completing no asbestos-containing material removal or other remedial actions at the site. Alternative number two is the full building demolition and removal with asbestos in place. This alternative consists of demolition of the entire building structure with asbestos in place and properly disposing of all building debris as asbestos-containing material. Also included in this alternative is full site restoration upon demolition and removal of the building structure, which includes reestablishing vegetation. Alternative two is the preferred alternative as the demolition of the structure is unsound and does contain asbestos, which is a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the immediate neighborhood and to all city residents. Furthermore, productive reuse of this property will positively contribute to the city's tax rolls. The estimated cost from Barton and Judith to complete the demolition and asbestos abatement is $692,000, and this would be eligible if awarded through the cleanup grant. The city is allowed to apply for up to $500,000 in federal funding, and it does require a 20% cost share. So just a reminder, this is 212 4th Street, which was originally constructed as a department store in 1940. It's located in the downtown mall area, and the city acquired this through the tax sale foreclosure process on June 23rd, 2010.
So this is a public hearing regarding a resolution to submit to a 2021 EPA cleanup grant application in the amount of $500,000 for asbestos abatement and demolition of 212 4th Street. It is going to be bill number 90, and I will open that to public hearing up now. Would anyone care to speak on this?
Quick thing, demoing sounds like the right idea. Take the foundations out if you want to repurpose the property. Unlike the nursing home on Lafayette Street that has the foundations left in there, who's going to redevelop that? and we gotta go invest all that other money. So,
Yeah.
$500,000 grant would be great, do a little bit extra and get the foundation out there.
Mhm.
That's all I would tell you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone remotely?
I do not see any hands raised.
I'll declare this public hearing closed. Our final public hearing is regarding a local law to amend sections C-9B and C-17 and C-99 of the Augsburg City Charter. It's going to be Bill number 91, and I will open that public hearing now. Anyone wish to come down and speak on this? Anyone remotely, Kathy?
I do not see any hands raised.
I'll declare this public hearing closed. And this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Yes. No, no. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm such an emo, a public speaking, but I feel like it's a lot. My teachers will probably take me or be really proud of me because I used to fail subjects for not doing it. But I did vote for the Four Seasons. And I was
Let's not make it personal, please. No name
Oh, no,
calling.
I'm not. It's a good thing.
Well, that was,
I'm sorry. I'm saying it in a nice way.
oh,
So I referred to it as that as I'm still a supporter. And I was saying it in a way that they shouldn't be called that. Sorry that I came out with that. But yes, I did. And my idea of saying that was just because I actually supported all of you guys. I supported everyone. And I continue to do so. I do feel like everybody thinks differently, and I accept that. I supported people for change, and I supported people for the passion that everybody has. Everyone. I really did. My son's autistic. I'll get back to this too, but when he was younger, he had this big issue with his snowman. So everybody knows the song, right? So as a mom, we said, Jimmy, that's not just a song you can sing all the time. It's a Christmas song. He looked at me and said, no, Mom, it's a winter song. No, it's not. I'm here first. I knew better, whatever. And then when I thought about it, it does not mention Christmas. We thought two different things. But that doesn't mean that each one of us was wrong. He was right. I was also right. I was taught that was Christmas song. And I'll run around singing it. I know people are scared. I was scared. I lost my job. Well, not really lost my job. My company had closed my building. My company closed our building. And I had to move to a different building. And when I mean I was scared, crap was I was scared. I was really, really scared. I had huge anxiety issues. But it was the best thing that ever happened. It was a huge change. I didn't know what was going on, but it worked. I had to take that leap of faith and do it. And again, I don't like everything that Mike does, or you do, or Ellen does, or anyone in the whole entire building. I don't like everything that my wife does. I don't like everything that my son does, and I don't like anything or everything that my boss does. But sometimes I have to put my own biased opinions away and just trust them. I have to trust my autistic son when he tells me that Frosty the Snowman is a winter song and not a Christmas song. The first responders, when there was that whole thing, I thought he was bringing it up, they don't mention it yet, but I do want to say I came from a domestic violence situation. So policemen and first responders, yeah, they were my saviors. They really were. My life was scary. So I have full respect for them. So I understand when they get scared about what's going on and if there is changes. But at the same time, like I said before, I was really scared of my changes. I mean, healthcare sucks. We're losing our jobs left and right in my big company. I got a lot of changes. But I guess all in all, I just feel like everyone does things differently. And maybe you guys will walk away tonight and still have huge differences. But for the time being, sometimes we just have to take that leap of faith. I mean, politics, no one likes politics. I say it all the time when they're in my garage, we're hanging out, no politics, no right religion, no nothing. Congratulations, I'm like, there's going to be a brawl. You're my best friend and I'm going to hate you tomorrow. Because if you mention politics, you know, it doesn't work out. But no one's going to like everybody. Everyone has their own opinion. It doesn't always mean you're right. And yeah, you might take that leap of faith and they may screw it all up. You know, you may say, hey, I have this faith in this person, and they may totally mess it up. But we're human. Everybody messes up. And all of you guys are on here because you do love Ogdensburg. I'm not even from Ogdensburg, but I do love it now. And that's why I would support all of you. And I know it's hard. I mean, I work with 30 women. Try 30 women. Tell them how to do things. It doesn't work out all the time. But I guess that's what I was saying. I just watched it and I keep thinking like I gotta say something. But yeah, I respect all of you. I respect you and welcome aboard. crazy train, but see, there you go. You have passion for jumping on board with it. You know, like everybody does. Nobody loves like Como. Not everybody loves Trump. Not, you know, like the whole night. It doesn't start with cities and it's with everywhere. No one can always agree. But it can work. And if everyone works together or tries really hard and with all that energy and just says, you know what, I'd rather just do it and be happy than be right, maybe just jump on board and try, you know?
Thank you.
That's it. And again, sorry.
No,
Sorry
thank
about that.
no, it's okay.
Yeah, good job,
No.
Trish.
Very, very good advice for all of us.
Thank
Thank you. Trish.
Angie McRoberts, 337 Proctor Ave. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Tonight, I would like to speak on two things: transparency and planning. At the September 28th meeting, you voted on a resolution to expedite transfer and dispatch services from Ogdensburg to St. Lawrence County. Little did we, the taxpayers or select councilors, know that Matt Denner had written a lengthy 3-page explanation of why this window of 3 months was not feasible. On the very day Mr. Jelly was granted the position of city manager, he withheld this letter during the meeting prior to the vote and discussion. Mr. Jelly knew the contents of this letter, had the letter in his possession, and had ample time to print the letter, forward the letter to council, read the letter, or ask the city clerk to read this letter as part of correspondence. I'm certain that although the agenda had been created, no one would have voiced concern over this document being presented prior to the vote as a part of the discussion. In North Country Now, you stated that Mr. Denner made it clear at 6:13 p.m. that he would not be able to attend the meeting. To say that you were not able to effectively share this information with 47 minutes to spare prior to the meeting leads us to be concerned with your ability to facilitate information in a timely manner. A man of your background should have been able to communicate this to council. You went as far as to say that this project was 2/3 complete, direct quote, but that, also a direct quote, essentially no work had been done by the county so far. So in fact, nothing had been completed. No planning with the county administration or an agreement as to who is going to pay for this. The county has made it clear that a cost analysis will need to be performed and that the city will have to pay for part of this upgrade. In your resolution, you threatened the county with a lawsuit.
Has the city attorney reviewed your threat? Is there a case for the city, and how much will this cost? So in reality, how much money will this save the taxpayers of Ogdensburg? I'm particularly grateful to our county government for putting the brakes on a change in procedure that could ultimately impact the safety of our citizens and our first responders. The select few council members and their need for instant gratification with little thought of a plan has been detrimental to our community. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, good evening. Sarah Raven, 212 David Street. Tonight, I'd like to talk about a couple things. When I look at the majority that sit here in front of us tonight, a few things keep coming to mind in a couple different words. It's misogynistic, it's manipulating, and when you look at a governing body, I'm not saying that it should be all sunshine, roses, and perfect, but I think that we put trust in the fact that the people sitting here that were voted in, we should be able to trust them, and that they're looking at the best interests of the citizens of the city. I would like to first address a comment that was made at the last meeting. It was in regards to women in general, not being needed in a position of city manager. I found this comment to be extremely insulting, disrespectful, and not only from my seat, but for many women that work for the city and for this community as a whole. I think I can speak for many, if not all of us, that a comment of this magnitude is revolting. I'm astonished this day and age that somebody could make a comment with such disregard for the feelings of their peers, coworkers, and any other woman in this community. Is it not your duty to serve this city with integrity? Because honestly, I think that you're failing miserably.
That was said, that was said
I'm
from
just
someone
gonna
in
say
the,
what I have to
from the
say.
audience. So I just want to make that clear, not said from anyone
To
here.
continue with this, if this man is so very qualified, then why is it on tonight's agenda that we're going to bring in an accounting firm to assess and build city budget? Answer this for me. Was it not the duty of past city managers to do this? Why is this question continually asked to show job duties and descriptions for this position, but those things are never answered? Is it because you're making it up as you go? If you claim the city is in such poor financial shape, don't you think you would want to use the resources of the team that you have before going to an outside firm? Is it simply because every qualified person that you have is no longer employed by the city? What if this firm brings in a team of women? Are you going to fire them too? I'd also like to remind you of the fact that the voting population of the city is not just made up of males. Next, I'd like to talk about the lack of transparency between this council that sits here in front of us. Why is it that so many times during these meetings that the comment is made, the minority at the table have no idea, and this is the first time they're hearing about something? Maybe some of you up there have never had to go to work with people that you don't see eye to eye with, but the only way to get the job done is to put your personal feelings aside and do the job at hand. A little advice, and I know this coming from a woman who may not like to listen to it, but stop bickering and stop tearing each other apart, and actually do something to put that effort towards the greater good of the city and attempt to make some changes that will actually help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else would like to speak? Anyone remotely? Oh, no? Okay. And this brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? We have none. Okay, now we're at, next we have our consent agenda. The claims is enumerated in general fund warrant number 16-2020 in the amount of $1,494,966.20, and library warrant number 16-2020 in the amount of $19,256.98, and capital fund warrant number 16-2020 in the amount of $6,415,582.79, and community development fund warrant number 16-2020, in the amount of $11,437.66, and Community Renewal Fund warrant number 16-2020, in the amount of $0, as audited be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
No.
Counselor Powers,
No.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
No.
approved.
Okay, we have no appointment tonight, and this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
An ordinance to amend chapter 221 entitled zoning, section 221-8, entitled zoning map, parcel 48.077-1-3.1 and 48.077-1-2.2 to be rezoned from moderate density residential to residential business. Be it ordained and enacted by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York as follows. Item number 1, amendment of chapter 221, section 221-8 entitled zoning map. That section 221-8 entitled zoning map is hereby amended to read as follows. That section number 48.077, block number 1, lot number 3.1, and section number 48.077, block number 1, lot number 2.2, with frontage on Covington Street in the city of Ogdensburg, which is zoned moderate density residential, is hereby rezoned to residential business. Item number 2, this ordinance shall take effect 10 days after publication of a notice which shall give the title and describe same in summary form.
I move that.
I'll second.
Discussion?
So,
Don't set the table there.
I love your sunset pictures. But, I've been here, sitting here for 10 years, and 10 years ago, before I even got on council, there was a community plan put together to develop the property, in this area. Connect the trail system for businesses. We had great community discussions, lots of them. We were hoping to connect the trail system, that developers would come in the area and they would also bring a trail there. Why wouldn't they? To their business, so people can come and eat or have coffee or whatever type of businesses are going to be there, and create a sense of vibrancy in the city of Ogdensburg, try and join and expand the town and our waterfront. And then I remember when we sold the property to Joe, and the changes that have taken place with different interests and developers. I've seen developers come to the Diamond property, and we have developers right now that want the Diamond property, want to expand it, which are going to make a whole lot more noise than a restaurant, I'll tell you that. And there's also standards with our BOA and LWRP project, that any building that is made has to fit what the community asked for. And that's how we got this cleanup money. It was a community decision to develop the area, to develop our waterfront. And I sat in on a lot of those meetings, and I understand the concerns of the neighborhood, and I appreciate that. I'm going to support development in this area and the zoning change. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Well, I think this is going to be very beneficial to Ogdensburg. I'm glad to see you willing to invest in the city. You'd be commended, and hopefully others will follow your lead. There's a need for additional boat slips. It's just gonna enhance the whole city, make it better for more citizens to be able to have their boats here, but also to, the more that the waterfront's developed, the more it'll bring in and all the businesses, will prosper. So I'm for it, and it is unfortunate that one thing, a positive thing may be a detriment to another, but for the city as a whole, this is a tremendous thing, and I commend you on doing it. It's not always easy, putting your money up like that and taking that risk, and it's great you're doing it. Anyone else?
I just wanted to thank Andrea for being easy to work with. I know we spoke with tonight that she was easy to work with as far as paperwork and things like that. And I think that's just a great face to have on City Hall, that people know that they can come in with questions, and it just shows that we are open for business. So I just wanted to thank Andrea.
Comments, it's a tough decision. I mean, you have residential, it's a small stretch of residential in the city, like Covington Street. It's not a quarter mile or half a mile or anything like that. It's just a small window there. And but ultimately going forward in the BOA restrictions and the brownfield that Dan mentioned, these are old endeavors that get them cleaned up was to get them back on the roll. And this time, I'm sure Mr. Richardson and his family will work with the city and the community and creating a flight. I don't see any flight coming from any operations in any way, shape, or form, but I would have to support this as well.
Now, I don't have this on my sheet. I have that you were going to talk about the cleanup of the EPA. Are we voting on this? Okay, my paperwork didn't show it. But so Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Now, I have Andrea to speak about EPA cleanup grant on my sheet.
That's correct. A resolution to submit a 2021 EPA cleanup grant application in the amount of $500,000 for asbestos abatement and demolition of 212 Fourth Street. A resolution to authorize the submission of a 2021 Environmental Protection Agency cleanup grant application. Whereas grants up to $500,000 are available to address hazardous substances and/or petroleum contamination at one or more brownfield sites through the fiscal year 2021 EPA request for application. And whereas the city of Ogdensburg desires to submit an application for funding to support the abatement of hazardous materials, including asbestos-containing material at 212 Fourth Street, currently owned by the city of Ogdensburg. And whereas in accordance with the application requirements, the city council held a public hearing on said application and the draft APCA at City Hall, 330 Fourth Street, Ogdensburg, New York, today, the 13th day of October, 2020. All those desired to be heard were heard, and their comments duly recorded at this hearing. And whereas if received, the required 20% cost share equal to $100,000 will be paid for out of account number A8020.515. Now therefore be it resolved, the city council supports the submission of this fiscal year 2021 EPA cleanup grant application seeking $500,000 in grant funds to complete eligible cleanup activities, including demolition at 212 Fourth Street. Be it further resolved that the Ogdensburg city manager or his designee is hereby authorized to submit said 2021 EPA cleanup grant application, and if received, enter into any necessary contracts to accept and administer said grant in a timely manner.
I'll move that.
Second?
Yep.
Discussion?
Who moved it, Dan?
Yeah, I have a question. So the city's 20%. Is it possible that can be in-kind service, so as, I know we have $100,000 stretched out, or excuse me, earmarked, but is it possible that, we could use some in-kind service to make up for that 20%? And that way, if we need extra money to remove foundations, we can do that and make sure that the foundations are removed, so that we're not stuck with what we have over on Lafayette Street.
EPA grants do not allow for in-kind contributions towards your required match.
Okay.
So, again, earlier this evening, I told council, and the public that the current estimate we have, which obviously doesn't go to bid, so it could come in less. But presently, the bid we have to do demolition is $692,000, which is $92,000 in excess of the $500,000 plus the $100,000. So if there is some way that the city can provide, in-kind services to offset the actual bid amount in some way, whether it's hauling materials or site work or something of that nature, in addition to the cash match that is required, then we could do that, but it cannot count towards the minimum match. The city also can request a waiver of the match, but in this case, we wouldn't be able to demonstrate that we would have adequate funding with just the $500,000 based on the engineer's estimate.
Right. So is the low bid right now, does that include foundation removal?
Just an estimate.
That's just an engineer's estimate. It would have, if we are successful, typically awarded in the spring, May, June timeframe typically. So I know we're not in a typical trend, so I don't know when they would really be announced, but typically they're in May or June. And we would be looking at fall, or at the earliest that this would kind of go out to bid. And probably it would be spring of 2022 when we would actually be looking at demolition if this grant is successful.
Yeah. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Councilor Reish.
This is the local law to amend section C9B, C17, and C99 of the Ogdensburg City Charter. Sufficient summary for it.
Okay, I'll introduce that item. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I think it's ridiculous that we're removing, one of the last democratic features of the charter. I don't support it, won't support it. Obviously, last meeting, I tried to call for a referendum after citizens, put up signatures, and I just don't think it's right at all. I think there's no reason for it. We should leave it in. And personally, I think if there's changes to be made and the council makes a move that you see a substantial portion of the city disagree with, what's wrong with a referendum? Let the chips fall. That's what I say. Let the chips fall. And democracy is democracy. Unless you got something to hide or you're just completely anti-democracy, let the chips fall. Win, lose, or draw. Now, I said something like that to Councilor Powers recently when I put that other agenda up. Maybe we're wrong on some of these issues. I don't know. Let the chips fall.
You understand?
Yeah, that a referendum was put in here in this charter and for a reason, to allow democracy to happen, to allow people to vote on an issue that is strong enough. And so I'm not going to vote to remove it, period.
Democracy happened last November, and we're here, and that's it. So, and that's what you need to, please, and that's what needs to be accepted. Democracy is not lost on this, Dan, not at all. Anyone else?
Yeah, I completely disagree with your statement.
His?
Yours.
Oh, we're looking at him.
No,
Okay.
no,
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So all that aside, the whole reason why this is in place, this reeks of nepotism and political favoritism. Completely. conversation later down the road. Maybe I'll bring it up in new business, who knows? But the fact of the matter is, we know, I know, there are conversations being had outside this chamber, outside this building, with people over our insurance, over some of our future endeavors coming forward, that are all connected to certain individuals that work for the city. This allows this body to pretty much do whatever you want. And the whole reason why they are here is to prevent political favoritism. That's why it's all here in the first place. Everything that you've done from January to now has been a complete disregard to the process and the form of government in which this city operates. You wanted to change it, there were steps to go and do it instead of just looking to do it through public law. I don't support it. In 4 years, none of us may even be up here. And then the other ones that are coming in are going to inherit this mess. And it's a mess, and it's building to be a big mess. That's my opinion. I'll leave it there. I will not support this in any way, shape, or form.
Well, your opinion's wrong, and, so, quiet, please. So.
You interrupted a woman up here for public appearance earlier. Right. And now you're telling people there to be quiet.
Hey.
What? If you think you're gonna throw me out of here, you're nuts.
Hey.
Let the citizen speak.
No. You had your time.
You interrupted a woman at the podium
You.
for a public appearance.
That's enough, Mike. That's enough. That's enough. We're having discussion now. Hey, the next outburst, you'll leave. Really, Mike, you're a dishonor in this council.
Are you kidding?
Steve, I want that gentleman out. He's been warned.
Non-lawful order.
Is he being removed? Or,
Non-lawful order. You can't throw the public out of a public meeting.
I can run this, and there's not gonna be disruption. I want this gentleman out. He's been warned. Is he gonna be removed, or I'm gonna close the meeting now? What?
Ask whomever it is that you want.
I want that gentleman right there in the blue jacket with the red trim. Please leave. You're not allowed to speak out of turn, and you've been asked to stop.
Mr. Scully, you stood right over there last November, and you screamed at the city council. I believe that the one girl will remember that. You screamed right.
And I stopped, and I stopped, and I stopped. Do you want to sit and stop talking, or do you want to leave? Do you want to leave? Chief Westcott, would you make him remove him, please?
Don't bother, Rob, I'll do it.
Thank you. And next time, come, just be respectful. Are you gonna be quiet then? Okay.
If I could make some.
Sure.
So just for clarification, C9B clears up the language, due to a, if people can hear me or not, due to a previous amendment. And, the other two revisions, there was a proposal for a referendum, and we've learned from our lawyer, and everybody on council has two legal opinions from our lawyers that this is contrary to state law. So the purpose of this amendment is very simply to make this charter conform with state law. Anything that's being said beyond that just is not accurate. So I will support.
In your,
no, it's kind of fact.
that's not what the Attorney General does.
If you want to share that with me, I'd love to read it.
We'd all like to read it.
I'll give you our number.
Okay, Kathy, would you call the roll? Oh, yes, go ahead.
the lawyer is not always right, Mayor. You are on the record stating, I was sitting right there, where the lawyer got up, the attorney, and he spoke, and he wanted any one of us to be able to contact him. And I made a statement, and he said, the city attorney is not always right. He is not always right. So that's a matter of opinion. So the matter of opinion that those two attorneys have, attorneys aren't always right.
That's why we went to a second one, Nicole.
They're still not
That was a
always
good
right.
effort, you know, two lawyers. Anyone else?
It wasn't a second opinion, all he did
Please.
was review the state. He did not get his own research.
Thank you. We had two, so,
Mike?
yes,
Mike?
Steve?
Yep.
Yes.
It was legal and the attorneys were correct. And on September 2nd, it was accepted by the Secretary of State, signed and put into law. So I think to say the attorneys were incorrect is just doesn't make any sense at all, because the Secretary of State, when they reviewed it, would not have put their stamp on it if it wasn't legal. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Steve.
That was a different issue.
No, that's why this one's out there today, Dan. This is.
It wasn't the referendum issue. The issue then was the change in the charter.
No, but because of the referendum, the one that was passed on the 2nd of September with the Secretary of State brought upon the changes for C-17 and C-99, because they were, after that, they were illegal. They didn't follow New York state law. So this, like John said, this is just a cleanup of it. And this is exactly what the attorney said on that also. So I don't understand how the attorneys can be wrong on this and the Secretary of State can be wrong on it, but some people can know more. I failed to see the logic.
Disagree.
Okay.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Scantily?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gilborn?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
Summary form, okay? A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with John Deere to purchase a 2019 John Deere 310 SL backhoe loader.
Nice.
Just explain in layman's terms so everybody.
It's a new backhoe.
Nice.
And we're using, leftover chip funding.
You know, Scott, it's really not necessary, This is a city council meeting. Why don't you obey the rules of the council meeting? And that goes for our employees too. All I'm looking for is, an explanation in regards to, you need a new backhoe, this is a trade, we're
That was
trading.
trading in a 1995 Ford triple nickel backhoe. And we're using funds from chips, almost 50,000 and leftover money to other lines.
Very good.
I'll move that.
Second.
Very good. Glad to see you get some new equipment. Any more discussion? Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Scantily?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gilborn?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith. Oh, Steve Jelly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Resolution to approve the sale of former paper Haywood Street for $1,500 to Aaron T. Smith and Shelby Smith.
I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion? Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Scantily?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gilborn?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Police Chief Robert Westcott.
Mayor, you're out of order.
Am I?
Next,
We're on,
You missed one.
we're on number 6 on your agenda.
I'm on 5, Police Chief Westcott.
Tax auction for multiple properties, bill number 96.
This is the public, auction, right? I'm missing something on my,
Well, you crossed this one out, sir.
oh.
We didn't do it yet.
I haven't done it.
Andrew's doing it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
A resolution declaring surplus property and authorizing the city manager to hold a public auction.
I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Ken?
So you basically went through the list of, properties that, are owned by the city and determined that these were surplus and recommending a public auction. Okay.
who moved it, second?
I moved it, Cole second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Scantile?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
Now, our next item of business will be read by Police Chief Robert Westcott. Sorry for making you go back and forth, Chief.
I think on page 27, luckily enough, you have a map of the area I'm going to be talking about. It was, in your agenda for another reason, but it just happens to be there, so it might be helpful to look at it. I'll read it in summary form. This is a resolution to call for a public hearing and public notice on a proposed ordinance amending chapter 209, section 209-48, schedule 11, titled Parking Prohibited at All Times of the Oxford Municipal Code. And essentially what this is to repeal a section of the OMC that says no parking from Allen Street, westbound to 30 feet past Madison. It's not signed at all. There's no parking sign. And, so it's not enforced anyway. What we want to do, that's the north side of the street. We want to move the no parking to the south side of the street for a few reasons. So that is also State Highway 68. It's got a double solid line painted down the, not quite center of the road. So what happens is traffic coming into the city from Morristown traveling eastbound are funneled into a single lane. Traffic heading out of the city westbound get a lane and a half, but there's no parking on that side of the street where there's no room. And it allows for parking on the south side of the street where there's no room. So cars have to cross the double solid line. There's not enough room for vehicles to park. That side of the street has several blank lots, a large apartment building that has its own parking lot, a business that has its own parking lot, several fire hydrants, where the opposite side of the street has more room is where the majority of the residents live, and they would be able to park in front of the residence. Just swap inside.
Yeah, really makes sense when you look at it.
Has that been moved?
I'll move that.
I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Oh,
I moved it.
Reese, second?
And the second was, thank you.
Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Scantile?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution to retain Ray and Gray certified public accountants, PC, to complete the 2021 budget
and assist with providing a comment operating picture to council of the current status of the city's finances.
What's the, no, someone's gotta make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We can discuss it.
I'll make a motion. Second?
I'm just, what's the dollar value here and,
Excuse me, Councilor, it's gonna be not to exceed 5,000, is what I'm talking about. I don't think we'll be anywhere near that. What I'm looking for now is, just largely some technical support to, fill into the absence of not having a comptroller. Already the office was a little short of, staff to work in this area, so this will give us a firm with municipal expertise to close up, what was about the last third of the budget. We were getting pretty close to support the finish up.
let's put the expenditure and the appropriation in future ones. I realize it's an emergency, but they're important items.
Any further discussion?
Was this put out to bid?
They've been retained.
We have a budget due on November 1st. There's largely no time for me to be able to properly.
Right.
But this really is a minimal amount of work out.
It's an emergency. Yeah. Angela Gray, she just, won, Woman of the Year in St. Lawrence County. They're pretty smart people. They do, all the work for, Canton, Village of Canton.
I thought we had an agreement with the Elko and Control that he would work part-time to help assist.
We did, and he backed out of the agreement, so sure, but
He backed up.
he did.
Wouldn't the state comptroller's office come in and help us?
And we're not looking for high technical support, really, the support to be able to finish these numbers, to scrub everything down. And then ultimately, what I'm trying to do is provide you all an easy to read budget documents right now, over 100 pages to look at. I'm trying to present you all with some graphs and charts and some things that can review quickly. This budget will be significant, tough decisions to be able to be made to balance this budget. And I'd like you all to be able to see a curve and a graph of where we've been, how long this problem's been going on. I expect that some of you know how long this problem's been going on, and where we are going, as was given to us by the State Financial Restructuring Board last year at the same time.
When financial restructuring report was when?
June 2019, you're in the report.
The report, right. The committee did the analysis in 17.
18.
No, largely 18, yeah, 18.
So, did you reach into the comptroller's office?
No. There really is not a need for a comptroller at this time. And honestly, I've reached the Financial Restructuring Board on multiple occasions. They're willing to provide us any additional support that they haven't already provided us, but right off the council, they provided us with the facts. We just have to act on them.
Well, that's what they can do. They can help compile a fact, put it into a budget. That's what they do.
They won't do our budget.
They don't bring those funds.
Comptroller does. Tim Ryan does.
Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
No.
Councilor Powers,
No.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly,
No.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
Resolution to appoint legal firm to provide specialized labor and employment counseling services. Whereas the city of Augsburg requires specialized labor and employment law counseling services, now therefore be it resolved, city manager is authorized to sign a retainer agreement with Cogburn and Gerhart LLP to provide such services to the city of Augsburg.
I'll make a motion for that. Discussion?
Just a second.
Yes. Bill.
What is the specifics?
Specifics are our current legal firms, the same rate that our legal firms, our current law firms charge.
Some of the areas that we're getting into labor contracts, some of the disciplinary matters that we're facing, our legal counsel just doesn't have the depth or the timeliness of a number of employees to be able to respond timely. So we won't be spending any additional money that we would have been spending with our current legal firm. Unless you calculate, they have to do a lot more research to do these things. So our costs won't be any different than what they were going to be anyway. I'm just getting somebody to work for us that has a much greater understanding and experience with working with labor and employment law.
How did we come to select this firm?
Excuse me, I was given a couple firms, references by our current law firm, and I looked at the two of them, and ultimately this firm has the experience in the area specific I'm looking for, largely in working with union contracts involving fire.
Give us a little more detail to the public as well as to where they're from. They're obviously a labor firm, not familiar with them, but where they're based out of and
labor firm from Vegas.
And was any other firms vetted that are put out before?
I looked at Bond Shanking King also.
I'm sorry?
Bond Shanking King, I looked at them also.
Anything else? Anyone?
I would like to make an amendment, if I may. I'd like to suggest an amendment just to put a time frame on this for 6 months from this date, in an effort to have some control over the cost. I would make that motion.
I would like to put a dollar amount on it more than a time frame, because I don't think that.
I don't know if we need that. I don't think we'll be near 6 months, but,
I think it'll be beyond 6 months, put a time frame, and I don't think you can put a time frame on this, because it's labor, you might end up in arbitration, you don't know what where the paths are gonna cross, or whether they're gonna cross, and the crossroads, you can't really put a time frame on something like this. If you were to do that, and then cancel the law firm and go with another law firm, you start from scratch again. And that's nothing but more of a burden to the taxpayer above and beyond this one. So, it's a lot of logistics here, it has to do with labor, you can't put a time frame on that. My
Councilors, I agree largely with Council Powers that I secured a rate, the same rate we're doing now. So it wouldn't matter, when we have issues, we're gonna have to use a law firm. So whether it's now, 6 months from now, or a year from now, I think it's important we have somebody that operates efficiently. I think this ultimately would save us money, and then I think we spend a lot of time now with our current law firm waiting for research and things that this firm may know about. So I understand your concern. I think probably more appropriate is just a more detailed brief into the issues that are coming forward, so council can decide the length and duration that they want to work the issue, and that'll be the way we control costs. Quite frankly, do we take on an issue, see it through, or do we not?
Personally, I think our lawyer fees they're exorbitant. I mean, the lawyer fees they're through the roof. I mean, we're literally taking on water to not have to do things that we said we were going to do. We're just taking on more costs to the taxpayers continuously. Everything we've done tonight has been at a cost to the taxpayers. So in a time where we're supposed to be doing a budget, and we're going to have to be very tough, and it's going to be a terrible budget, and we're just taking on more expense. It doesn't make any sense what we are doing.
I agree.
It's just, the expenses are adding up, the hostility is adding up, the morale is through this, what, and here we are just spending more taxpayer dollars. It's just getting to the point where it's out of hand. We're getting additional lawyers, and now we are getting an accountant. Like, these are all things that we should be able to handle with what we have. If this law firm that we have that we use for the city is so great, they should be able to do it all, in my opinion. Like, we should not have to be having, we have attorneys and lawyers that, one came in last week and people didn't even know we had them. You know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
well, it doesn't matter which firm, if the cost is the same and one is more proficient, then that's a good move, I believe. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I don't disagree, Counselor. There's all the law firms that you just mentioned were engaged by some city council in the last 2 to 10 years. No question. Some of them wouldn't catch me. tell you who we've got working. Some of these, for instance, the one last week, Police Matter, those are hired by insurance companies. They don't cost us anything. So the insurance company hires a legal firm to represent us. But we do have a lot of legal costs. We need to be much more thoughtful in our decisions. I mean, I'm not, you all know what I'm doing here. We have 5 union contracts, 5, that we should not have signed last year, 5, that we cannot afford. So now I'm in a position to have to figure out how to work our way out of those contracts so we can afford them. Now, if you all have ideas of how we can do that without doing that, during this budget, I'll be absolutely open to that. At the moment, the only way I see is we are going to have to reverse these labor contracts that are just signed in the last 6 months that we can't afford.
I think that if council would have sat down with the labor union, I think a lot more could have been accomplished than what was done with axes and pitchforks. I think if we would have sat down and had courteous conversations in January, more could have been accomplished than what is we are dealing with and paying for today.
I think the time would have been November, December to
But you
sit
are
down.
not councilman, so your opinion doesn't matter.
So, oh, really, Nicole? That's when the agreements were made, and that's when things should have been done correctly.
No, 3 years to making those contracts. COVID matters. The comment that COVID matters, COVID only made it worse. Make no mistake about it. COVID made it worse. The attack on sales tax in the county made it worse. I mean, all of our sources of revenue, any way you slice it. You can take the fire department out of the argument. You can take police department. You can take whatever department you want to take out. Whatever department you're favoring or not favoring, you can take it out. It doesn't matter the department. The only thing that really matters here, at the end of the day, and everybody needs to understand this, loud and clear as I can tell you. This is just about money in and money out. We can sit here all night and add conjecture, we can add motion, we can add support, but right now it's just about money in and money out. Our sources of revenue are on the decline. There's not one person sitting here that largely is controlling that. None of you are controlling the fact that sales property tax is flat. That's not controlled at the moment by 7 individuals sitting here. It was none of you are doing that the county largely last fall declared war on sales tax distribution. An issue that we're working, but I don't know where it's going to go. And then certainly nobody predicted COVID. These are just facts of where we are. So we're taking in less money. Nobody can possibly think that we can spend the same amount of money or more. That really is all this is about, and how we get to that now shouldn't be the source. I agree, Councilor Kennedy. It shouldn't be the source of all the animosity, all the meetings that we're taking over it. It's just an absolute fact. And until we just are determined to address the facts, instead of all the emotion and acting like there's some level of public outcry or public outrage that's going to change the situation, it's not going to change our record. So we largely have a nucleus. DPW, police, and fire, that's the nucleus of where the bulk of our money goes. So they pay money. Everybody else that we pay outside of that, there's so few left, it's barely worth talking about. And you cut them all, the only thing you're doing is limiting your ability to manage and administer the programs of the city. So it isn't an attack on those 3 organizations. It's not. It does just so happen that one of those organizations has a contract, stipulates staffing, and so largely we've taken council's ability out of the equation to be able to manage the budget with that. So our choice is very ugly. Just continue to chip away at the 2 organizations that don't have that in the contract. That's it. Until we figure out a way to increase revenue, which is also not going to be easy. If we find the magic solution tomorrow, if we're successful in starting the catalyst down on the vast Richardson property, that's great. We're talking several years before we start seeing a return on that. I'm hopeful. We were invited to the Jefferson County, or the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators meeting to speak about the sales tax issue. They heard us. I hope that we're going to be able to at least stabilize that so we know what revenue is coming in there. But this is just a serious revenue issue that, Councilor, with all due respect, I've sent you the information. You all, the 3 of you do this, and all 7 of you have known it now because I've been counting. There's no secret this city's been in a financial stress period for a long time, and we've still made decisions that acted as if that wasn't the case. A 5 and 6 and 7 year level contracts are literally just irresponsible. We have no way of predicting. How did we tell those unions that we can fund this for you over a 7 year period with no real belief that we could? So now the union's hiring an accountant, we're hiring a different accountant, all to tell us most likely what we know. We don't have enough money to pay for this. So vilify whoever you want to vilify. Vilify me, vilify the new council, doesn't matter who we vilify. The facts are still gonna remain when it's all boiled down, then we don't have enough money coming in, and we're gonna have to make a decision how we're going to work within the means that we have.
Oh, hang on. To piggyback Nicole's comment, for starters, we have a resolution here. That's what we got going on. This wasn't an opportunity, but regardless. Prior to COVID, those contracts were negotiated in good faith, with many concessions. I disagree with your statement that going forward, I am a state employee and I am a product of 3 7-year contracts with a state that's in the same fiscal issues. So at the end of the day, you can't predict COVID prior to us agreeing to those 7-year contracts. Those were good negotiated contracts with health insurance benefits that offset the cost over the life of that contract. But more importantly, we have a resolution on it that needs to be addressed. I have to agree with Councilor Kennedy in the fact that, and I'd like nothing more than to support your position at this point. But other than what you gave us in the consent agenda today, I don't have a whole lot to look at. I want to see the revenues. I want to see the payables going out. I want to see and as Councilor Kennedy said, I don't want to get off target here, but we're throwing money out like we have it. You just said we don't have it.
The pay raises, I don't think a number was done at the time, but they came to $1,156,787 over the 6 years. And and when you put the benefits, increased benefits, it's probably over $1.5 million. Now, for the 3 previous years, our expenditures have grown over $500,000 a year. All that's left we meet our New York State tax cap is $156,000. So.
I believe it was $180,000 with a 2% tax cap for 2021.
Okay, $180,000, I'm sorry, $180,000 when you're going up $500,000 a year, and then you put $300,000 a year in pay increases and benefits on top of that. So now you're going up over $800,000 a year, but we can raise $180,000, and so you can see where this is going. You know, expenditures are going to overtake our taxes, our income, and you know, and then we put off a lot of necessities. The roof on this building, the fire department pool needs work. Our fire trucks are 15 and 20 years old. Our DPW equipment is probably majority is 20 years old. Our sewage pump stations we're going to have to try to come up with $6 million. Some are on the verge of failure. We've already taken on a lot of debt. It's serious. It's just serious, everyone.
If it's so serious, why don't we get the state in here to intervene and install a control board? If let them take the fiduciary problems right out of our hands, let them make the decisions, and then if whatever they see fit, let it happen. If you're saying that city council is not capable of making these decisions, let the state control board come in.
We're capable of making decisions. We've the hiring freeze and cuts have saved $1 million this year. But there's nothing left. But there's nothing. But there's nothing left to cut.
There's not the question on the resolution, if we could move on.
Okay.
Dr. Jeff, I didn't get a chance to speak yet. So everybody has a chance to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
So I think you're incorrect on some of your numbers that you put out.
Mm-hmm.
The savings you left out on the health insurance was phenomenal, like hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, just on the move and good faith concessions, as Mike said. Secondly, the fire department basically gave up 4 jobs through attrition that we agreed to. We wanted 8 after careful consideration. We thought it would be dangerous to the community. The other thing that I think you're incorrect at is you said that we had expenditures over $500,000 a year for the last 3 years. Last year, in 2019, we actually had almost $1,979,000 in savings between revenues and expenses. And we started off this year with a $2.6 million fund balance that we're eating through by hiring union busting lawyers now.
You're wrong.
Which is all this attorney is.
If you look, your expenditures have gone. Your expenditures have gone.
There, Mike.
Your expenditures have gone up over 5. Your insurance, your health insurance, Dan, your health insurance went up $330,000 last year.
No.
So where was the savings?
They decreased.
They did not go down. They did not decrease. They went up $330,000 in 2019. They went up $330,000.
The $1 million that you speak of is over a 7-year period of time that's reduced, and so the wage increase doesn't really include the reduction in staff. That's what you're not seeing.
The reduction in staff, so we go from 28 to 24, but that's when people retire. But there's a 5-man minimum staffing per shift. And so when we go to 24, now with that minimum staffing, what do? We pay someone overtime now to come in and be the 5th fireman? That 5-man staffing should have went down with the 24. When you didn't take that down, you just left us where we pay someone overtime to be the 5th one. You did not save anything with that agreement.
No, we saved a lot of money, but.
Your health insurance went up $330,000 last year.
That was in 19. But for
19,
20,
that's last year.
But we still saved.
What was it going to go up? Was it going to go up $750,000?
You look at revenues from expenses with,
when?
Can you please speak one at a time? I'm sitting here, I can't hear you.
and that's what we negotiated, 0 increase. Right.
There'll be a 0 increase. You sent an email out weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Let's move the resolution.
Let's move the resolution. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Howard?
No.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Camperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
Now we're at old business, and I believe, Steve, are you going to speak?
On the issue of the previous workplace violence complaints, I've been able to retrieve all the original information. Despite all the discussion that's out there, there were in fact 2 complaints in the May timeframe. So I have those. The city will be continuing a proper investigation to bring the facts to bear on those matters, and I'll have a full report for council no later than the next meeting, and I'll try to get it all to you before that. As far as compliance with the violations that were cited by PESH for the program, those are largely the 3 violations we will have completed prior to the end of the month. Largely, our biggest issue to work through there was getting everybody through the training or getting documents, and then we didn't have. Some of you, quite honestly, just have documents from other employment places, we just didn't have copies of those. So I believe by the end of the month, we'll have all those violations and we're reporting to the state that we remedied those things. The other 2 are largely acts of performing the required review of the program, review of the privilege. There will be some of us reconstituting the group that lost a lot of just disqualified cases, and the ball got dropped in 2019 in our doing. So we'll have all that cleaned up. As far as specifics, I don't I have only a couple tonight that I'll cover in executive session. They're not anything that I'm ready to discuss.
And you have something on sales tax, or was there anything, or no? I don't know what's on my sheet.
Yeah, no discussion, question.
Okay. On the sales tax,
no,
the first one, no.
So in sales tax distribution, just from my perspective, we have done a series of meetings throughout the county with town supervisors, village mayors, legislators. We've sat now twice officially with the finance committee, a portion of the finance committee from the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators. Largely, we haven't reached any compromise to their position that they want. They have a formula they want to use, and our position of the program that we submitted on behalf of ourselves and the towns and villages. I do feel like during the negotiations, though, we've aired a lot of facts out there. I think a lot of familiarity with each other's positions has become a little more known. So I don't think the talks have been completely unproductive. I think we've had some good discussion in the last session. I felt like we convinced the county that this issue has been quite as simple as Ogdensburg has not been minding its business, and that quite honestly the current council is doing all they can do to reverse previous spending habits, if you will, or things that the county feels like we're just not doing enough. I think we're able to get some of that. It's not entirely true, but the city also supported very actively and aggressively the county getting the additional 1%, the 8% sales tax that has largely bailed the county out of a very deep hole that they were in just a few years ago. So I think we're able to convince them that it is time that same consideration for the additional 1 penny, a little more of a percentage of that goes to the city and goes to the towns and villages with the same intent. And then perhaps maybe it's time to give that 8 pennies back. How long do we want to consider being an 8% sales tax county in New York State or one of them? So we're going to have another meeting. We're going to present to the full board or one of the full committees, which is also the full board. They have all their board members serve on all committees. We're going to present to them. So I'll be sending information to all of you. I think it will be important that before we go and present to them, that this council has a resolution of some sort adopted with what our position is. So I'll look for all of you. If you don't feel like you're 100% knowledgeable on what our request is, what the formula is, that you give me the feedback so we can craft our position. And then sometime between now and the end of the month, we really need to be able to say to the county, this is our position. This is what we want to negotiate from. Because I think largely what we're going to be asking the county is, we need a decision. Are you going to support Ogdensburg and ultimately a revival? And really more acute, the survival of our city, and then ultimately revival. Or is it your desire to see Ogdensburg set free and we preempt and become a sales tax collection entity all for our own? We're doing the research and the work. That largely is what is taking a lot of the comptroller's time, is doing the research. We haven't had a lot of ability to get good granular information from the state. We've had to course through a list of 21,000 businesses from St. Lawrence County and determine which ones are attributable to Ogdensburg to be able to give you all an estimate of what we think would be an average sales tax year. We're using 2019 as a full year of data to be able to do that. I don't really have a lot of apprehension in the amount of money we may draw. My concern is that it's a pretty significant function. It's not something that somebody will do collaboratively. It's a lot of work to maintain the records and make sure that every vendor that is in the city collecting sales tax is paying directly to us. There's only 12 or 13 entities in the state that do this, so it's really not even something that the state is well set up to do below the county level in a lot of places. So I am a little concerned about that. It would certainly be cleaner for us to make a good deal with the county. So we'll see what that goes.
This proposal largely comes from our 2 representatives on the county legislature that are elected by the city residents, the city of Ogden, or at least partly elected by the city of Ogden.
There's just 2 now, Councilor, but sorry, no, the presentation the county is proposing?
The proposal from the county, and it's from our 2 legislators.
No, sir. Our 2 legislators, Mr. Regan being solely representing the city of Ogdensburg, and Mr. Forsythe representing a portion of us as well as the town of Lisbon. They're squarely in favor of our proposal, of what we'd like to have for a sales tax agreement. This largely comes from the finance committee, led by Mr. Akers. And we proposed a 10-year agreement. We were willing to compromise right away with, hey, we really could do this 3 years. Give us the amount we're asking for a 3-year period. and, let's see how it works, and we'll come back. I think we have more room to compromise in what we want to do, but right now, I think they're holding firm that they would like to treat everybody the same, have the sales tax distribution based on a combination of taxable property value and population.
So they've gone from wanting to take 100,000 from us to take it even more.
So we're working on the figures now, but yes, the population now, if you factor in council, we're most likely going to see a population drop with the 2020 census. Yes, it would be more. Maybe as much as $300,000 or $400,000.
Yeah, the estimates are take them out annually, really. I mean, so we're to lose 700 people, and we're going to be at about 10,700, I think, right?
Right, and hoping to stay there, correct. And again, and I don't know, the census will most likely be challenged, it always is. I don't know when there'll be numbers that we verify what we can use. And so part of this is we have to make a decision. We can't wait. We can't wait very long after the first of the year.
But the existing formula has nothing to do with population because it was based on actual revenues that the city collected and that, over an historical period of time. So I don't know why they want to change the formula and base it on something different, I guess to get more money from it.
Yes.
Correct. So they believe, again, if our population is similar to the village of Messina, why would the city get more than the village of Messina? We've argued several facts. Part of it is because we are a city and a lot of the services that villages or towns get from the county, or the village gets from the town, or the town gets from the county, or whatever. We largely do all those things ourselves. There's an added inherent level of expenses that are higher when you're factored as a city. So the 6.44 was an average. The percentage that we were largely getting was factored over many years. I think there was a lot of thought put into how we got the formula we got. I just think now the county's gotten well. They've gotten well on the 8 cents. They've also gotten well because, again, I think they had a significant shift in the way that the county board of legislators was running. A lot of hard decisions made at the county level. A lot of jobs cut, programs cut, things reduced. I mean, they made a lot of hard decisions in the last 10 years. I don't think anybody can doubt the county's in a far more better position today than what they were. I think our argument just is we would like to be able to use a little greater percentage of that 8 cents to do the same thing for the city, and most of the towns and the villages, especially in the wake of COVID, agree with that. And again, at some point you have to consider giving it back. If we don't get this sales tax back to 7 at some point, then the only potential future is it goes to 9%. Things either go up or they go down. We're not. As long as it stays at 8, a more ingenious idea at some point would be to raise it to 9%. And we just can't continue that.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else we're on old business? Okay, and this brings us to new business. Anyone have any new business?
A couple of items on that.
So I just want to give you an update on waterfront properties. We've talked a lot tonight about growth and revival of the business area, particularly the waterfront. So as we've heard the last couple of council meetings, no change. We have awarded a grant to assist with marketing and planning for how to best sell the Diamond National property. So while we're waiting for that, Andrea's doing all the work to establish the scope of work. We're going to bring at least 3 courses of action to all of you for the next meeting of what the types of proposals are we think we want to present, our ideas that we want to give to a contract. Now, part of the idea of a marketing firm, hiring somebody, at least with a regional pull, if not national, is to create a scope of work and have them come in and then also bring us courses of action. But I want to lay out to you what Andrea and I see as the best uses we think of that property. But as we head east down the waterfront, we've asked for the county's support. They've had a lot of success in cleaning up properties that are contaminated. So we've asked the county to work with us to kind of show us what your secret sauce is, what your magic has been for cleanup. So we're asking for their support with the Shea Roller property. Now, a little different than what they've been doing. Largely, they've been working on small sites that have largely petroleum has got some other things in there than that, so it's a bit difficult. But I think it's gonna mark, the first project that we will work with the county, to be able to, again, work collectively to bring the resources to bear to get these cleaned up. So, you know, you all know that property sits between our very nice 16-acre parcel of land that we want to market and the parcel that was being talked about tonight. So there's a real emphasis, sense of urgency on our part to get that site cleaned up and make it not as marketable going forward, but we certainly don't want anything to impact development that could occur on either side of that. So I've given them, that's our number one priority, is that shade roller at the moment. Continuing eastward down the waterfront, the other side of our marina, we've had some discussion with Mr. Pello, who owns the first piece of property adjacent to us. He has some plans, he's got some ideas, nothing concrete at this point. He's got a couple other projects that they're bringing to completion now in Canada. But I do believe sometime in the coming year, we're going to hear from him on development of that property. So that brings us to the Osbury property. So I've had discussions with each of the two private landowners. There's 3 parcels there. So the parcel to the left and all the way to the east are private owned. And the parcel in the middle was formerly a parcel owned by the Kiwanis. Now I say formerly because we're in a position as a city to be able to take that property back based on taxes. But again, I'm trying to proceed cautiously here. What we don't want to do is put ourselves in the chain of title with these properties. The state would immediately issue a government entity some kind of a consent order just because it will be viewed as having deep pockets and the ability to clean this up. And the truth is we really don't. So again, we're going to be working with the county, the DEC, the EPA to figure out how best to move forward. And then ultimately, the city will take complete control of that Kiwanis property. But I want to be clear by doing that, we'll be calling in the regulators. I mean, we can't do this without the DEC support, the EPA, and there's no way that they're going to focus on a small parcel of land when there are 2 larger parcels on either side that we know by study are largely contaminated. So once we start down this road, there won't be any turning back. The private landowners will most likely be notified that your property is not in compliance, and action will start to take place. So I've informed all of them of where we're going. We certainly like to work to help them get to where they want to go if they want to stay involved in it. But as I explained to one of the property owners, this isn't a piece of property in Manhattan on the Hudson River. That if it were contaminated, no developer would care. They would buy it at any cost, clean it up at any cost, and well develop it and recoup their money. That's not the scenario here. This is property that will be very expensive to clean up, and as of the moment, we don't have any buyers. So, but I do think the time has come. I don't think you get much pushback from anybody in this community. The time has come for us to take control of this waterfront, get it cleaned up, and do our best to get it back on the tax roll. So we are working cautiously. None of this will happen as fast as anybody wants it to, even though the actions I'm talking about now it'll seem like 2 to 3 months will go by before I update you with anything substantial that we're even moving in that direction. So I just wanted you all prepared for that, to know where we are. And we will start probably at the first of the year with a little more presentation-based and status-based briefings on where we are with each of these parcels.
Really glad to see an emphasis on waterfront development. Thanks for working on the Kiwanis piece, and Mr. Pelda, shade roller with the county. I know they've done a good job, and I asked about SLPC. That's a big chunk of waterfront too, so we keep going on that. I'd like to see their last proposal if I could.
And you have something on police reform, or? Thank you.
So what I want to review tonight was just largely our beginning efforts to start to work on the governor's executive order on police reform and reinvention. So for this, the first page, this is a proposed steering group, and I'm bringing this all to you for the first time, so I'm just looking for some discussion, or at least to evoke some thought. What we're looking to do is just appoint a steering group, basically a group of 5 to 7 of us that will largely establish the agenda of the process and keep things going. This will be a very, very collaborative effort that will involve largely anybody and everybody who wants to be involved. But we've got to have a starting point. So my proposal is looking, to the 6 blocks here. The governor's executive order directs that, I lead the group, so I'm looking to have police chief, a member of council, someone from the district attorney's office, the school superintendent who I have approached, and the hospital CEO that I haven't, but I'm using that as an idea of kind of some key leader figures in the community to largely steer this group where we need to go. Next slide, just highlighting through the executive order 203. These are the large, kind of the high points, that comprehensive review of the current police force, deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. So the plan addresses in particular needs the community served, to promote community engagement, to foster trust, fairness, and legitimacy, to address any racial bias and disproportionate police in the community of color. Each chief executive shall convene the head of the local police agency and stakeholders in the community to develop the plan. So again, this is, there's some communities in New York that have gotten way out in front of this, done some great work, so we've already got some folks to be able to turn to for peer work from time to time, and we're going to do that. And there's some agencies right here in St. Lawrence County that have already begun and done good work. So we've got some people to turn to already who've tripped on a few things that we'll learn some lessons. Stakeholders, these are all excerpts right from the executive order. So this is the minimum group of stakeholders that we must be in contact with. And you can see that that's pretty narrow. So again, our intent is to involve any group in the city that wants to be involved with kind of organizing the effort, and then the types of input and changes that we look to see. Final plan certainly will be offered, has to be offered for public comment to all citizens. We present to the council for ultimate adoption, and we have to have this done no later than April 1st. So our timeline is going a little bit short, but I think once we get to work, we can move through this fairly quickly. Our next steps will be to coordinate and collaborate with county and other local government entities. As I said, we've got some folks right here close by that are doing some good work with already, and we've engaged some other cities of similar size and demographic to ours. The next thing that you'll see on the 11/9 council meeting is the timeline and the process we're going to use, and I hope to be able to identify using kind of a broader list of stakeholders that will be engaged, and then ultimately standing by for the whatever the state comes out and changes from there. So this is just a quick snapshot of what we're doing. We are just getting started. We're largely, a little bit behind where I'd like to see us at this point, but I think we can get caught up relatively quickly. Just again, based on Messina's already got some good work, the sheriff's already in motion. We reached out to the city of Corning, who's done some really good comprehensive work in form of real collaborators. They actually are working in Benton County to do a countywide effort together with the sheriff and the city of Corning County and everybody. I don't know if we would be able to pull off such a feat here. We are going to talk to the sheriff about their approach and what he sees as kind of setting standards throughout the county. Questions?
Excuse me, I gotta use the restroom.
No, that's great.
When is the first meeting?
As soon as I get everybody sitting down, I hope we capture this. I need to talk to the hospital CEO yet, the superintendent of schools, and I talked today. And the district attorney's office was getting a lot of requests for this on these.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any new business? And this brings us to items for discussion. Does anyone have any items for discussion?
Where are we at with the RFP for the accounting firm services for auditing?
We have all the bids, the function's getting over right now, but I haven't gotten it. But we have all the bids in, we just have to evaluate that. I've got a couple points that just gotta clarify this, as far as the local, what preference, if any, we were doing to companies. We had quite a few more bids this year, and I think we had in previous years, so I just need to ascertain what preference, if any.
Right, so the current audit we had, they only went through the audit year of 2019. I'm on the audit committee, so I'm curious. And,
So we haven't seen AED yet, I'm not going to read all the time.
yeah, and I was wondering, is it possible to get an audit done through September of 2020? We've had a lot of changing of the guard and hands and new hands in the pot, and I would like if we could get some sort of comprehensive audit to see where we are as an outside entity.
So, Counselor, what I had planned as part of utilizing Greg was giving you the updated picture where we are, and then from there, Council wants to call for an additional audit, and then calling for an audit will, that's a fairly significant
So I just know Gray and Gray doesn't do audit,
No.
so they're not capable of performing that for us. I just think that there's been a lot of changing. There's other questions, I have several. Whose name are now in the city bank accounts due to the fact that we don't have a comptroller? They were Tim Johnson, who has taken over those responsibilities.
So I signed all the accounts as the administrator, and then, the people in the comptroller's office are signed to write checks.
Nothing personal, but I have an issue with this being checks and balances. How it's kind of like when someone's healthcare property, they can't be in charge of the money. I would like to see something different on there. There needs to be checks and balances as far as some accounts we have accounts that have lots of money in them. We have accounts that have $30 million, $50 million for the wastewater sewage treatment plant. We have $20 million in the budget. I mean, there's just a lot of money, and then I just think that the person who makes the decision shouldn't also control the checkbook.
So, unfortunately, Council, the charter directs me to assume responsibility. I didn't have a better plan.
Is there anybody who could give you those duties? I'm not looking to.
Yeah.
It's a genuine concern to check. Transparency hasn't been of the utmost, and when money is involved, things get messy, and I'm not citing impropriety on anyone.
I think it's getting out of order. I think you're getting out of order with this.
I'm not.
Insinuendos.
She has the
I have
floor.
the floor. You're interrupting me very rudely.
Well, you're out of order with insinuating things like that.
I'm not insinuating. All I'm asking for is a series of checks and balances, and if not, I don't give a shit what your opinion is. I'm not talking to you.
Let's watch the language, eh? So anyways.
I have the floor.
Go ahead.
Talking.
And go ahead.
Well, then stop interrupting me. I can't get a thought out edgewise without your big
Will you calm
mouth.
down, Nicole? Go ahead. Proceed.
Thank you. I shouldn't need your permission though. So that was all I'm saying is I think there's a clear need for checks and balances. And I clearly stated I wasn't insinuating anything or any type of impropriety. I was just asking for transparency. That was it. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong.
I think Mr. Jelly agreed with
And
you.
he agreed with me that that is not the ideal situation. So what I'm just asking for is that does not remain the situation. Can we remedy that? I think that is a question that our taxpayers are curious of, who is controlling the city's money. And I think it is up for an open discussion. It's not a secret who writes the checks in the city. I mean, it's taxpayers' money. They deserve to know, and they deserve to know, is this something that happens on a continual basis? Is this something that happens averagely? How long is an absence of a comptroller? What is the process? And we are in uncharted times. We did lose a comptroller, so those are legitimate questions. It was nothing to disrespect anybody, but those are serious questions that I have a responsibility to ask. Thank you.
So I will provide the council with some more recommended courses of action by the end of the week. It won't be bad, but I got 2 or 3 in mind from all of you, and we can set aside the discussion. I assume responsibility for the account, again, just today, so that we could ensure that we had signed. So it's not my intent, I'm not signing checks at this point. The administrator of the account, I've got 2 people in the comptroller's office for the signers for the checks. I will provide you other courses of action for some of the administrative accounts.
I just want to make sure like somebody is making all of our bonds from this time, like they have all that information. I just know the email underneath, but there's a lot of things that weren't being done. I
think we have all the functions under control. I'll provide you the courses of action on them.
Like I said, it's nothing personal, it's just strictly. Thank you.
Anyone else? And this brings us to citizen participation. Anyone that attending would like to talk, please come to the podium.
One second before you speak. I did get a message that the raised hand feature is not working. People are trying to raise their hands for, they were trying to raise their hand for personal appearances, and they weren't able to.
And it wasn't showing. It's right up on the screen as well, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just got a message, so I just said that I would.
I'll reach out to them.
If you could, yeah, I just said that I would let someone know.
Definitely, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, guys, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt your walk down. I just wanted to get it in before they started and I forgot.
No, I appreciate that. That's part of the reason I'm here, is for a point of order. I received numerous, inquiries from the public as I'm sitting there, and I also am wondering, Councilor Fisher is not in attendance at this evening's meeting. There was no notification that we could find anywhere that was noticed where he's having this meeting, that it's open to the public. If it's not, if it's COVID related. So as a point of order, I just would like to make sure that we are following our municipal law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
Anyone else like to speak?
First of all, last meeting I asked a question to you, Mayor and Council, of who negotiated the city manager's contract. And as a taxpayer, I thought I would be able to find out, but I was told you'll hear about it. So the next day you went to your favorite TV station and told them what you couldn't tell the taxpayer. Okay? Mr. Jelly, you sent a letter out to the public. Did you give these guys a copy of that letter? About not, name calling and all that stuff? Well, what I just witnessed right here was atrocious. Maybe I'd start right here. Okay? And I'm thoroughly against a recreation facility manager and not a director of Parks and Recreation. Okay? We did that before and it didn't work. You told me right to my face one day that you want to get a bigger and better recreation program than we have. And I supported you for that. Okay? If you're gonna go that way, it's not gonna work. You need somebody that's got recreation background. You need somebody that knows how to develop programs. And to have it run out of the city manager's office, all fairness to him, it's not the right way to go. You need somebody. It's worked for 40 years. A director of Parks and Recreation that ran facilities and ran programs. That's what you need. And if we do that, you're shortcutting this community. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll agree with what Councilor here said, the raised hand. I was at my soccer game tonight. I had 20 girls, 15, 16, and 17 years old. One of their comments to me at the end of the game was, "Coach, you're going to the council meeting." I said, "Yeah." I said, "They're still there, I'm going." Well, they said, "Would you give them a message for us?" I said, "Sure, what is it?" They said, "Have them come up to a practice or game and see how the team works and see how communication works to be successful." Maybe you have to try it on a voice of 15, 16, 17-year-old kids.
Anyone else like to speak?
A couple quick ones. Councilor Reach, it was nice to hear from you back there. You spoke into the microphone for once. Since you guys really love amending the city charter, I'm wondering if you ought to move to Article 9, C18 for the city manager. States prior to appointment, this person shall be qualified by at least 1 year's training in public admin and finance. It leads me to believe that he might not have that if we have to hire an accounting firm for $5,000 to wrap up the budget. Is that possible? Did we do any background on his ability to do public finance? Leave that as a no. Moving down, let's see, the attorneys that we hired, they wouldn't happen to be the same ones that represented the city of Watertown, were they? I know Mr. Jelly did intervene on a pro bono basis to try and bring the fire department and the city of Watertown together. And it, in the end, cost the city of Watertown about $1.5 million. So I hope we're not going down that path. Any comment or no need to respond to taxpayers? Lastly, I would like to commend Mr. and Mrs. Richardson for their hopeful investment in the city of Augsburg. One thing I do hope is that they take their assessment and go with it and don't try and sue the city for what they've invested in their property and cause a long, drawn-out legal battle. Substantial bills. I noticed on the latest oil for the city attorney
attorneys, there's a lot of blacked out, redacted info on there. But there was a lot of back and forth with the city attorney about being able to drink on the sidewalks. So that's a good one. Worth money.
Anyone else?
Part of the problem is the date that people from everywhere here give to all of you guys, not just the new ones, but the old ones. It's horrible. If you're gonna come up and make a date, I know I was confused, but I was kind of point with it. But if you're just gonna come up and just throw digs at people, just do what you, like, the point that you wanna do. Explain the facts of it. Don't make digs at people. Whether it comes from you guys, like they expect you guys to know better, but also you guys, the citizens. You should be proud of this place. Act proud. No, it's true. It's understandable, but you don't have to
Okay.
think about it, you don't think the kids take on people.
So,
But you guys do it too.
okay.
Everybody does.
Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. Is anyone remotely?
Well, we've been advised that it wasn't working, but I do have two individuals, as you can see up on the screen, that do have their hand raised. So we'll start with the first one. That individual is registered as Ryan Mitchell. And I will unmute that individual now. Here's your line is open, sir.
Good evening. I would just like to make a couple points. Today, I actually got on the city website and just looked through and did sort of a quick review. One thing that stood out is look at the city manager's responsibilities that is still on the website. And I was thinking if somebody was down south looking to move up to Ogdensburg, New York, they would see that he prepares the annual budget. That's a lie. Hiring personnel, that's a lie. Policy advisor, that's a lie. That brought me to the next thing. I clicked on commissions because people like to get involved. Rec commission, empty. Audit committee, one person on it. So here we are looking at our finances. We don't even have an audit committee. So as Councilor Kennedy brought up, the public has a right to know finances. We don't audit them. Executive comp board, all we've talked about, negotiations, salaries, that's totally empty. So Mr. Mayor, your job is to fill some of these committees. What are we doing here besides just leaving them empty? If you come from outside the city and want to move in here, take a look at that city website. I mean, it's actually amazing when you go through, look at the lies, the emptiness, and what's there. It would also make you wonder as a city manager, what is he doing? 4 things are listed on his title. 3 of them he does not do. I'd just like to leave you with that point. I guess we learned tonight that if citizens have opinions, according to the mayor, they don't count. Hope you guys have a good night, and thanks again.
Is there anyone else?
The next individual is registered as Felicia Dumas, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears our self-muted. Felicia Dumas, it appears you are self-muted.
There we go. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Felicia Dumas, I'm the Executive Director of the St. Lawrence County Community Development Program, and I wanted to give the council an update on the Ogdensburg Neighborhood Center. I did speak about that and kind of our position last meeting, how we had to find a new location. Just wanted to let the council know that the Ogdensburg Neighborhood Center, we had to close on Thursday, October 8th. That is thankfully a temporary closure through the end of this week, through Sunday, the 18th, and we're hoping to reopen in a new location on Monday, the 19th. That new location is on Caroline Street, so it's just across the street from City Hall. As I mentioned last time, this does, of course, come as an increased cost. Our agency grant funding only covers the salary of the one individual we have working at all 6 neighborhood centers. We have 6 locations throughout the county. So we do not have it within our grant funding to pay the cost of rent, which of course we're going to have to incur at this point. So we thank the city of Ogdensburg, the residents who have continued to support us throughout the years, and we hope that they continue to do so, and that maybe the city council would consider supporting us in the future like other municipalities do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There is another individual. That person is registered as Deborah Montgomery, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted.
Hi, I'm sorry. I tuned in late. I didn't hear the whole council thing, but I did hear the woman that just spoke. And I don't understand why the neighborhood center was removed from the basement of City Hall, where it has been my entire lifetime. What is wrong with you people? I don't understand that. Why do you not listen to the people? I understand that you have an agenda, Mr. Mayor. I get it. But why aren't you listening to the people who voted you in, the people who will probably vote you out? I don't understand. You ask for opinions and then you don't listen to anyone. You guys are like a freight train going through our city. I'm so disgusted with the situation that I tuned in earlier and you weren't listening to anybody. You were yelling at people and throwing them out. And I had to get off because it upset me so much. I couldn't watch you anymore. Please, please stop it. Fix our city. Stop the games. Stop the power trip and do the right thing. That's it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
There's no other hand raised that I can see.
I see one. Come on down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not sure if I should take a breathalyzer before I do this, but,
I hope not.
no, well, I hope not either, but I would start moving that stuff around. But what I do know is, a council person who may be here or may not be here, said he asked for references upon references for our city manager here. So I did a little background, and his first listed reference, Mr. Jared Stoller, was never contacted by anyone from the city of Ogdensburg until Mr. Jason Bouchard, who called him that day to ask him about Mr. Stoller. Now, I find that a little bit perplexing, seeing as we're in the middle of what we're in the middle of. And I'm not taking anything away that multiple interviews with Steve, but for someone to say that we've asked for references from his references, and the very first listed reference on his resume was not contacted, is very problematic. I don't know what else to say, except for it just is more par for the course and more wool brought over the eyes of the people that are trying to make this decision. We should have opened this up to public to make sure the right person was, and it may have very well been Mr. Jelly. But we at least should have, by the time he was even referenced as a potential interview for this, I was spoken to by people all over talking about this individual. And we didn't even reach out. He called the first listed reference on his resume. I find that very shallow and it's an indictment on this council to not want to have the right person for the job. Thank you.
Is that it for remotely?
There's an individual with their hand raised. That person is registered as Richard Millett. I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted. And as you see, if you're watching the screen, that individual is, they have hit the raise hand feature in error.
Okay.
appears you are self-muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good evening. Mr. Jelly, I wanted to thank you for explaining kind of the state of the state that I think a lot of people in the city are aware of, you know, the situation that we're in. I think a lot of people don't want to look at it. Judgment is clouded because of jobs, and I don't want to see anyone else lose their job. We need our firemen, we need our police officers. That's not what I want to see, but I also know that you're here to do a job. I've heard you are, and I'm going to be very candid, I heard you're ruthless. I've heard lots of things about you. However, I will hold my judgment and hope that you'll do right by our city. I think the biggest thing that you're doing with getting an outside accountant firm, whether it's you're incompetent, I'm not saying you are. However, in the past city manager last July was quoted in an article, and anybody can look it up, it's online, stating that Ogdensburg is financially going off the cliff. That was in July, and then passed a budget with contracts that were unprecedented. And I'm not saying that those firemen do not deserve those raises. That's not what I'm saying. They put their lives on the line every day. However, when you're financially going off a cliff and to sign a 7-year contract, in my opinion, you basically just fired yourself. So if you can get us out of that situation, get us off the financial cliff, and you can save the city and maybe bring us back some sense of dignity here. I'm not sure if everybody watching each of these meetings and things like that we see, although tonight I was pretty impressed by some of the speakers. I don't agree with everything that's been done. I think I've been pretty public about that on Facebook. Everybody thinks that I'm, pro everything that Mayor Scally and his team is doing. I'm not. There are things that I have said to Mike personally that I've disagreed with. However, I do hold the same goal. We need to lower taxes. We need to increase our tax base, and we need to bring businesses here. We are not going to bring businesses here with our tax rate as high as it is. So therefore, we need to look at different ideas. We need to roll up our sleeves, and everyone needs to be part of that solution. So Mr. Jelly, if you can drive that train, I'm on board. Right by us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay. Then at this time, we have a need for executive session, and I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second. Any business?
Yes.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scantleman?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yeah.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Approved.
Liz calls up, her husband just received a 7-year contract.
Jimmy?
Buffalo women?
I don't know, I've been so
I know, you're worried about the bill?
I was going with your year. And of course, you never walked in.
We had a board meeting today, I took back to Albany, one of our lawyers, I'm mechanic.
So who's the 60, 20?
She's a huge Buffalo fan. She's like, we're going all the way this year. I said, oh, you gotta go through this.
Good, wonderful.
Yeah, what was it? How's the Giants doing? You're 4-0 in the reverse.
They're 5-0 in the reverse. How you doing? Rolling. Oh, yeah.
Every time I get somebody to work for me, they get someplace else to go. My grandson Andrew,
Yeah.
works for Richardson, and him and his wife are buying a house in Northport.
You know what? As much as still going.
They never voted to adjourn the meeting. So we have to say live here with that.
I'll send you a copy.
Can you copy that memo?
You gotta come back and never adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for everything that you got. You have a lovely evening. You too. I'm going home to have a beer. There you go. 500 hours. Thank you for a lovely evening. I thought there was, but then I didn't, I thought there were. Anyhow, this is my buddy here. You know what my side looks like? It looks brown. Gotta wash it. Well, I mean, it's the color of the stuff that the guy put on. Oh, the ceiling? Anyway, I gotta go.
Have a good night.
Yes, you too.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye, girl. Good night. It's unclear. Yeah, I heard that. We're back, Kathy.
Pretty good there, man. It's like days of old. Not too bad, almost.
Kathy, would you call the roll? Is that right? Oh. Huh?
You have to let the record reflect,
Oh, let the record reflect.
it should be on there for you.
Okay, let the record reflect, city council has returned from executive session and all members are still present. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Adjourned.